Started this past March. The governor's office in one particular state started fielding strange phone messages from female constituents of that state. I'm going to quote here. Quote, "I need to get a message to the governor that I'm on day 3 of my period. My flow seems abnormally heavy, but my cramps are much better." Or this one, quote, "Hi, yes, I just got hired on permanently full-time from a contract position." Then the operator says, "Great, is there something I can do for you?" And then the response is, quote, "I just want the governor to know my uterus decided to celebrate by immediately shedding itself and bleeding out. I thought he would appreciate the update on how politics are going." Before Mike Pence became governor of Indiana, he spent years in Congress trying to pass amendments defunding Planned Parenthood at the federal level. He was unsuccessful in doing so. In fact, he never passed any legislation of any kind for the 12 years he was in Congress. But by the time he made it to the executive branch in his state, he was finally able to follow through on those long-nursed ambitions. In 2014, then Governor Mike Pence cut state funding for Planned Parenthood, cut it by half. That caused a number of clinics in his state to close. Then this year, he signed into law a bill banning abortions in Indiana based on your motivation for wanting to have one. The bill also included trap laws to block some doctors from performing abortions. The bill also took the unprecedented step of requiring the remains of the fetus to be buried or cremated. You may reluctantly be allowed to still have an abortion in some circumstances in Indiana if you can find a way to do it, but the state government will require you to have a funeral for the remains. In response to that bizarre new mandate from Mike Pence, women in Indiana, seeing that their governor took such an interest, started updating him regularly on the status of their menstrual cycles. That's why he started getting those phone calls. This Indiana law that Pence signed, it has since been blocked from taking effect thanks to a lawsuit by Planned Parenthood, but that's Mike Pence. That's Mike Pence's political career. That's what he is known for. That's been his priority issue his entire time in public life. And on day 1 of him now being vice president-elect to a president-elect that we don't understand very well at all, we've already started to see the effect that Mike Pence's governing philosophy is having on the rest of the country. Women today started to encourage each other to get the IUD pronto before obtaining birth control, particularly an IUD, might become all the more difficult if Republicans like Mike Pence follow through on their promise to gut Obamacare or to ban certain forms of birth control or to pass new laws restricting abortion at the federal level. We're also seeing today some of the largest women's health advocacy organizations in the country, including NARAL and Planned Parenthood, really bracing for the worst, but insisting that their doors will stay open. The president of Planned Parenthood put out a statement today in response specifically to Donald Trump winning the presidency. Quote, "We will never back down or stop fighting for the people who come from communities that need our continued support in this new reality. Every day, our staff wake up and open their doors. They'll do so today, they'll do so tomorrow, and every day as they have for 100 years. These are meant to be, of course, comforting words on a day when women across the country are concerned, and rightly so. My question, though, is for the people who work in this field of civil rights, for the people who work on reproductive rights under all the pressures they've been under all these years, is there a doomsday plan for a time like this, for Mike Pence as vice president, the Republicans in control of the House, the Republicans in control of the Senate, and a conservative majority, potentially a big one, on the Supreme Court? Joining us now is Cecile Richards, president of Planned Parenthood. Ms. Richards, thank you for being here.
Good to see you, Rachel.
Am I right to ask about a doomsday plan? Do you see this as a doomsday scenario for reproductive rights?
Look, Planned Parenthood's been around for 100 years, as you said. We've been fighting for the right to reproductive health care for that long. And as we said today, our doors stay open, and they will. And it has been kind of extraordinary, as you said. We have supporters, thousands of supporters from around the country, took to social media last night immediately. Folks have been dropping off baked goods at our health centers. But also one of the most interesting things has been the number of women who have called and made appointments for birth control. IUDs, things that are covered now by the Affordable Care Act at no cost, because they are, of course, concerned that Donald Trump will follow through on his pledge to overturn the Affordable Care Act. So we are seeing lots of new patients coming into our health centers.
Do you think that Roe versus Wade is at risk?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Roe versus Wade was on the ballot in this election. Now, I know that Mr. Trump has said that in his acceptance speech that he was going to govern for all Americans, not just ones who voted for him. And I hope that includes women, because, of course, women overwhelmingly did not vote for him, particularly women of color. And if he is going to govern for represent all Americans, this is a right. The right to safe and legal abortion is a right women have had in this country for more than 40 years. And it is supported by people of all parties. So it is important, and we will absolutely be fighting for a justice to the Supreme Court who supports this right for women.
I don't think you will get a justice at the Supreme Court who will support this right for women.
Well, that's what we fight for.
Yeah.
That's what we fight for every single day.
In terms of battles, winnable battles, and what, basically how you're asking people to absorb this information. I said something at the top of the show about sort of understanding what the sources of civic strength are in our country, that we have a democracy, and that's really important. We also have a lot of other things that are really important, like an independent judiciary, and a professional military, and a civil society, and all these things. For people who want to recommit themselves to the things in this country that they can control, that they think are good for the country, people who care a lot about what you're saying about reproductive rights, what do you think people can do? I think people have to join organizations and join movements that represent their point of view and their values. And look, I will say, I'm incredibly heartened, even in this very difficult year we've had, even leading up to this election for Planned Parenthood. You know, we gained 600,000 new supporters. We're now at more than 9 million supporters in the U.S., which is, if you're doing the math, 1.5 times the membership of the NRA. And so that is, and putting that movement into action is what we do every day. We'll certainly do under this presidency to fight for folks' rights. But we do need a very robust civil society in this country. And I believe you will see that. I think we're seeing it, obviously, as you're saying, in the streets tonight. One of the most encouraging things to come out of this election is that young people are overwhelmingly progressive in this country. Again, I think they are, and they are taking action. And to me, that's where we are investing in Planned Parenthood, is a whole new generation of folks who believe in LGBT rights, they believe in women's rights and civil rights and voting rights, in criminal justice and immigrant rights. This is a time when people have to get off the sidelines, if they are, and join a movement. Yeah. This is a time to, I think in particular, to do something that you haven't done before. Absolutely. Right. And that's what we're finding. That's what we're finding. Yeah. Cecile Richards is president of Planned Parenthood. Cecile, thank you. Good to see you, Rachel. Being here. Yeah. Always. Okay.